Hey there, welcome back to another episode of Golden Key Design. We're going to continue with the bedroom renovation this week, and as you can see, the carpet is just littered with debris, and this is actually all of the debris from the popcorn ceiling removal that I did last week. And in today's video, we're going to be focusing on demo, first by tearing out all of this carpet, and we're just going to roll the carpet up with all this debris inside of it to make for easy removal. And we're going to use a utility knife for that, and I just replaced the blade with a nice fresh one to cut through the carpet nice and easy. Let's get started.
You're going to want to make sure that you put a brand new blade in your utility knife, as carpet is honestly pretty hard to cut and it will dull your blade very quickly, so you might even need to use two. But here I'm just cutting all of the carpet into 3-foot sections so it's a little bit easier to manage so I can take it outside. And I still had a lot of that popcorn debris caught in the slide, so I had to dump that out before continuing. But as I mentioned, this is actually a pretty good technique to clean up all that popcorn ceiling dust or any other debris that you might have during your demo, because it can just roll up in the carpet and then you don't have to worry about cleaning it. Obviously there's going to be some left over, but not too much. Next up is taking out the carpet pad underneath the carpet, and this is a pretty similar process. It's most likely stapled down if you have a wood subfloor underneath. However, if you have a concrete subfloor, it may be glued, but it usually does come up pretty easily. And once you're done removing all of the carpet pad, you're going to want to go back and remove all the staples so that if you put down new carpet, those won't be in the way, or hardwood, or whatever floor you might be putting in. I then moved on to removing the baseboard and tack strip around the perimeter of the room. This is what holds the carpet down onto your floor, and it's covered with nails, so be careful as you do this. And a crowbar makes pretty light work of it. I then remove these closet doors, and most of these are held in place by a spring, so all you're going to want to do is push up on the door and then swing it out, and it should come out pretty easily. And the reason we're removing these is we're actually going to be doing an open closet, so there won't be any doors on it, and I'm also going to be doing a full video breaking that down, but for now we're just going to complete the demo. I then began removing all of the trim in the room, including all the light switch sockets, as well as trim around the doors and this wallpaper. I was a bit worried about this wallpaper because I wasn't sure exactly how it was adhered or what was behind it and how much work I'd have to do to clean it up. And while the wallpaper did come off really easily in nice sheets, it did leave behind a pretty bad residue, and as you can see that here, there's basically a textured finish of the glue that was used to adhere it to the wall, so we're going to have to fix that. As well as at the top of the wallpaper, there was some drywall damage where they had adhered a piece of trim. I sprayed some oil-based primer onto the parts of the drywall that were exposed and came back and gave it a quick sanding.
Alright, so next up is we're going to be patching up all the drywall, and as you can see, I already put some mud on this wall here, and that was to cover up the residue left over by the wallpaper that was on here previously. And I could just put on one coat, and I think that's going to work nicely, so we're going to go around the rest of the room and do this wall next. Probably going to do one coat, sand, and then one more coat on top of that, and that should be pretty good because the texture really isn't that thick, it's just a really light texture, so I think 2 coats should be more than enough. Let's get to it.
So as I mentioned, we're basically applying a skim coat on top of this drywall, and that's just to build up the surface of the wall so that the adhesive isn't showing and that the complete surface of the wall is flush. And here I had to do some electrical work, so I'm patching up some of the holes I had to cut, and we'll be covering that in next week's video. I'm going to discuss how to run new wires, add a new outlet, add some switches, and some lights, so stay tuned for that. Once everything was dry, I gave it a sanding and then applied a second coat.
Alright, we're finally done with drywall repair. We're going to start with primer, and I'm just going to be using this Kilns Tube primer, which is just a multi-purpose primer for pretty much all applications. It's also water-based, so it's a lot easier to work with than an oil-based primer. I'm going to start by edging all of the joints where the ceiling and the walls meet, then I'll come back with a roller and get all of the walls. Let's get started.
Even if you get your paint shaken at the store, I find it best to use a drill attachment to thoroughly mix it before application. After edging the room with my brush, it was time to start rolling the ceiling, and I invested in an extension pole as this makes it a lot easier on your back. I applied 2 coats of primer, and then it was finally time to start painting. Here we're using Evergreen Fog by Sherwin-Williams, which is their color of the year for 2022. And I think it's a really nice mix of both gray and green, and it's easy on the eyes. I also get a lot of questions about how to properly cut in, so I wanted to go over that in a bit more detail. After dipping your brush in your paint and wiping off a little bit of the excess on the wall, you're going to want to drag your brush across the ceiling, and you're only going to want to get about a ½ inch of paint on the wall. And you want to do this with a very steady hand. After you're happy with that line, you're going to come back and fill in underneath that line so you can get about 3 inches of paint on the wall, and it'll be enough for your roller to fully reach it without touching the ceiling. Hearing someone explain how to do this and watching them do it is one thing, but the best way to learn this is just through practice, so you just gotta get out there and try it. And I've come to really like this pouring spout that I got on Amazon. I'll link it down in the description, but it makes pouring the paint a lot easier without making any mess. Then it was on to rolling the walls, and I made sure to apply 2 coats. And a good tip for between coats is to apply a Ziploc bag to your roller as well as some tinfoil to your paint tray, and this will keep your paint fresh while you wait for the first coat to dry. And that's going to wrap up this episode. We're going to stop here, and next week we're going to be covering how to run new electrical as I mentioned, but now we have all the walls painted and the ceiling painted, so we're making pretty good progress. And as you can see here, you get a bit of a sneak peek of some future projects to come, but I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and learned something along the way. And as always, thanks for watching and happy building. See you next week.